Here we are, another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Oh no, now what? Oh God.
Good morning,
Let's,
Peter.
morning, Bill, and everybody, whatever time of the day or year or planet you are on.
Podcast number 410. Woohoo!
Mm-hmm.
Here is the headline for today's, or the title for today's, been doing too much copywriting. The title for today's podcast: The Lazy Creative Real Estate Investor's Revolutionary Secret Weapon. Wow. So here's the title. I'm confused. I'm sorry. I got to be here and be ready, and I'm ready now.
Okay, here we are.
Imagine this. This is description, okay? Mm-hmm. Imagine this. You wake up to your phone making a clinking of coins sound. Not the screeching alarm you use now to get up and go to work. This phone notification is another chunk of dough ready for your taking. And the twist? You never left your pajamas. Are you confused or maybe intrigued? You should be. The traditional real estate game is about hustle, leaky faucets, and chasing down deadbeat tenants. But what if there was another way? A way to leverage your time so you can finally get that beach vacation you deserve. Sound too good to be true? Well, then you should tune in now and see for yourself how to crack open the vault. Today, we will be focusing on the effortless deal that turns the most stubborn sellers into putty in your hands. Today, we will show you how to structure deals so easily that even your teenager can do it. In fact, they'll do it better than you, by the way. This is the future, and it is designed for the smart, ambitious individual who wants to win the game without the grind. Tune in now so you can get off that hamster wheel and live the way you should, free. How's that?
I'm in.
You're in?
I'm in. Hey, you know that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten that a lot of times. It goes cha-ching, and you look at your phone and it says, $1,000.
Yay.
I'd be in bed like cha-ching, like, oh, there's my money. Thank you.
Yep.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yep, it is. All right, let's do some of our unfamous or infamous. Infamous means it's not very popular, right? Housekeeping stuff. So first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for watching or listening wherever you are. The intention of this podcast, all 410 episodes up until now, is to change your thinking about real estate. It's not necessarily about changing what you're doing, because that's what coaching's for. Right? That's what you need a coach for, is to change your doing. All we are here to do is get you to look at real estate a little bit differently and make it easy in your head. And I would hope after 410 episodes, we have accomplished that with some. I know we have, because they've become coaching clients and they've become, students of courses and stuff like that. But
yeah, but better, they bought houses.
They bought houses. That's right.
Yeah, a lot of people bought houses.
In the beginning, we used to get a lot of that. We don't get that too much anymore, but in the beginning, we used to get a lot of that. People would send in, hey, I listened to 4 of your episodes and I bought 2 houses.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we record this podcast at 9:30 a.m. Thursday mornings Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes we go on vacation, like next week Pete's going to be on vacation and we pre-record, but for the most part, probably 48 or 50 weeks out of the year, we're here live. You can catch us and be part of the podcast on Thursday mornings because we live stream it when we're recording on Thursday morning. And then Emma, my daughter, does her magic and puts it on the podcast platforms for Monday. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you'll hear it on Monday on a podcast platforms. In any event, if you'd like to be part of the podcast, you can go to one of the live streams, which is on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and just use whatever device they allow you to type into, and it comes right to me. For example, Chris is saying, "Good morning, Bill and Pete." Good morning, right. Chris. Chris is becoming a regular. Sam says another one on the books. Okay. Another one in the books. So There you go. Okay, so you can ask questions about the podcast. If you have questions other than the podcast, you can go to Flipping Houses for Rookies. On the top right-hand side is support. You can send us a support ticket. Or you can go to WhatsApp Messenger and join us with a link and Let's Talk Real Estate. It's like our mastermind group. There's a little over 100 people, 100 and something people in there, and they're all real estate investors. And some of them have been around for a long time. Some of them have been through my coaching, and they're no longer in the coaching because they're doing well. So there's a lot of resources in that small group. It's like Napoleon Hill says, it's a great mastermind group. Mm-hmm. Lastly, I put in the chat a link, not in the chat, I always say that. In the description of this podcast, I put a link, and that link, I give away things, I give away bonuses, I sell things for way less than I sell it anywhere else if I do sell something, because you're here and you're listening to us, and I'm dedicated to this podcast, so I make sure that whatever that link is, you can't find it anywhere else. You have to be here. You have to kind of know the topic of the podcast, and then you'll know what's in the link. Okay, so that's it. We're done with housekeeping. Now we can move on to doing some business. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Pete. Yeah. I need to, in public, confess.
Uh-oh. What did he do now?
I'm lazy.
Oh, boy, Bill, I can't tell you what a relief that is for all of us.
I am really lazy.
Yeah, but
truthfully, I am lazy.
Well, I don't know if you really should call yourself lazy, because I know a lot of times you do a lot of work. So what do you mean you're lazy? Because I know you do a lot of things.
And what I mean by this is I don't like doing something that is a waste and not getting me to a result fairly quickly. I mean, I'll put my work in, but I definitely am an eye on the mountain type of guy.
Yeah.
Definition of lazy is lack of effort or activity. Now, kind of coming off script here a little bit, if you listen to me and we talk about, I just read this morning, I can't recite it, but Harvard did a study. You guys have heard the famous study about how they college kids wrote down their goals, graduates wrote down their goals, right? And like the statistics 20 years later, only the 3% that wrote down their goals exceeded or went past their goals.
So only 3% wrote the goals down. The other ones didn't do it?
No, what? Some of them, like 13% actually stated their goals, but they didn't write them down.
Okay.
And then the other 87% or whatever the number is, didn't do anything.
Yeah, okay.
So like 13% stated their goals and 3% wrote them down. And the 3% that wrote them down not only hit their goals, but they exceeded them, and they were very successful in life.
Wow.
So that's a famous study. I think it was done in the 70s. I'm not sure.
See, I missed that one. I was there in the 70s, but I wasn't at Harvard. Yeah. I missed that totally.
So here's my point is just like Jim Camp talks about, you have to have a mission, you have to have a purpose, when you're talking to somebody in a sales cycle. So any salesman, and we're not salesmen, but any salesman that has a purpose or a mission can focus their results towards that purpose or mission.
Okay.
So when I say lazy, definition of lazy, lack of effort or activity, I'm kind of talking about that line. If you don't have a mission or a statement or a purpose or some goals written down, then it's a lack of effort or activity. It's not activity that's going in the right direction. It's just activity.
Yeah.
You know, like you take an employee. Well, I owned an auto repair shop for 27 years. So you take one of my auto mechanics and ask him, you know, what's his purpose of being here? Oh, well, I got to pay my rent, so I have to work. And then you take my purpose of having an auto repair facility and ask me, why am I here? And it's like, well, because I have 13 employees and I want to help them have a better life, and I help people with their cars, right? So that they can have an honest repair shop, and they can come here and be trusted. We could be trusted.
Yeah.
Right. And so the auto mechanic will just keep coming to work every day, putting his hours in, because it's just a nebulous or confusing or foggy. It's like he's in the middle of the fog.
It's like I'm supposed to show up. Everybody else does, so I'll show up too, without much thought about it. You just show up.
So the lazy part is not having a goal, or not having it written down, or not having it clarified. And oh yeah, by the way, the goal isn't I want to make $10,000 a month. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. It has to be profound. It has to have the hair stand up on the back of your neck. It has to be something that you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about. It has to be something that you can't get your attention off of. It's kind of like, Peter, when you were a teenager in high school, and there was that girl or that guy, if you're a girl, you know, that other person that you just had a crush on. And everybody's had that. You just was like, oh man, if I could just get a date with them, right? And you go days, and that's all you can think about, right? Maybe weeks, that's all you can think about. You know, there's some nerd movies, they go years thinking about it. Right? But in most life, it's usually a couple weeks, and you're just enamored with this idea of having this date, right? Or kissing this person, or touching this person, or you know, whatever. I mean, I'm not supposed to say that stuff in public these days, but you know what I mean. It's kind of like that.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure. There's passion behind it. There's a purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at it that money is what happens after things go the way they're supposed to go. You know, if you just want money, you've got to go rob it someplace. But if you want to, you know, create the money, you do something that is for you, and that's something valuable people like.
You ever hear the story? You ever hear the marketing story about the guy in the hardware store? And he comes in, he's working in a hardware store, and the guy comes in and he says to the guy, I need a drill. Can you show me where the drill is?
Oh,
and he shows him where the drill is. And then he says, I need a drill bit. And he says, okay, here's a drill bit. He says, what are you doing with the drill? So the moral of the story is, he didn't want a drill. He wanted a hole.
Yep.
Right. So money's like that. Money is the reason for something you want. You want to buy a car. You want to buy your time back so you can spend with your kids. You want to go on vacation. Money is the vehicle to get what you really want. And what you want is that passion. That's where you should be. It's not at the money. You should figure out, which is what relieved me. I'm telling you, it relieved me a few years ago. It changed my life. And you know, because you saw it, you see how I live, right? It changed my life because I realized that I'm like, why do I want all this money? And I had this huge epiphany. Money had nothing to do with it. What I wanted is I wanted a way to create income. So no matter how I decided to live my life at the time, it could be funded.
Yep.
So if I want to take 8 months off and go do a sabbatical, I can support that.
Yeah.
I could pay for that.
Yeah.
Right? Which I just did. Right.
Yeah.
If I want to buy 4 tires for my wife's car, I could support that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what money's for. Nothing to do with this podcast, by the way. It's just completely.
Well, thanks for the extra.
Yeah. So let's get this straight now. Our listeners don't think that chunks of dough are going to show up in their mailbox. So we're back to the podcast. So I was stumbling because I realized I transitioned and I didn't tell everybody. So back to the podcast. So I don't want anybody to think that this podcast is about passive income. In my world, I do not believe in those two words. There is no such thing as passive income. If you set anything on an automaticity or automatic, it will break. Like, for example, let's say you have a blender in your kitchen counter, on your kitchen counter.
Yeah.
And you just turn that blender on and walked away. How long do you think it will last? You see what I'm saying? After a while, it's going to need to be refurbished. The motor's going to wear out. Things just happen. So there is no such thing as a complete automaticity that will just spit out $100 bills or $1,000 bills and never need attention, right? Inanimate objects that have no sentient value, no thinkingness. Like my desk is an inanimate article, right? If I walked out of my office and came back 100 years later and nobody touched it, it would be exactly the way it is right now. They can't move. So human beings bring life to inanimate objects or create them. So the inanimate objects need human beings to control them. So don't think that your income is that way, because money is an inanimate object. It's just a piece of paper. What money is backed by confidence. So I know I can give you my bicycle, you can give me $50, and I'm confident I can take that $50 anywhere and get anything I want.
Right.
It's the confidence. So that's what moves the money around, is the confidence. It's not the money. The money is just it's a printed piece of paper that symbolizes I can get whatever I want with it.
Yep.
Right. So that whatever I want with it is the human interaction. So that's why it's important to have your passion and your statements, because what do you want the money to move around and do? What do you want it to come in? How much do you need to come in and how much do you need to go out? Like maybe you want to build a church, or maybe you want to have a mission where you have a place for kids to come in, a learning center, or maybe you want to have some sort of a thing for after school program for parents to work, and they can bring their kids, and instead of being out on the streets, you're helping them with constructive type activity.
Yep.
Right. I'm way off topic. I'm on a rant. I'm going to stop. So anyways, that's hopefully you guys are enjoying this. So let's get back to the podcast. So I'm done on my rant. So does all that make sense?
But by the way, Bill, we can't tell when you're podcasting or ranting, so you can just keep going, and we'd be fine, because it doesn't like break and start a whole new thing. It leads off it. If you just keep going, we wouldn't even know the difference. So knock yourself out.
Thank you. So all I want to do is let's just get straight, because this podcast is not about just chunks of dough showing up in your mailbox or your bank account. There is some work. The purpose of this podcast is to show you how to do the least amount of work for the quickest results. Now, I don't think that this podcast is going to make you a billionaire, but it will get you started so you can do other deals and pay for your education and maybe pay some chunks of dough down and relieve your life a bit so you can put attention on what you need to put your attention on. We're going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we go, Peter. Don't give me any shit today, okay?
I'll think about it. Depends. Don't deserve any. I won't give you any.
Remember Vilfredo Pareto, the Italian economist?
I don't know. Say it. Was Alfredo?
No, V like in Victor, Ifredo.
Wow,
Vilfredo. Vilfredo
Okay.
Pareto,
Okay.
an Italian economist, discovers the principle in 1897, the 80-20 rule.
The year my grandfather was born.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And
the
the
80-20 rule.
Yeah, he discovered he did it in his little town of Italy. He noticed that 20% of the people owned 80% of the property. That's how it started.
Ooh, okay.
And the 80-20 principle states 80% of the results, 80% of your results, listen to me, 80% of your results, 80% of your results comes from 20% of your effort. Just look at your life. Yeah. It's like that all over. Mm. Right? You know, people want to lose weight. There you go. It comes from 20% of their decision making of what they're eating. Mm-hmm. Or 20% of not exercise. You know, just put it in anything you want. Right? Yeah. Even your problems, right? In your family. Mm-hmm. You have 5 people in your family, one person's the troublemaker. That's 20%. Right?
Okay. 20% make 80% of the trouble. Okay, I buy that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right? Yeah. And because of this mindset, I've been called lazy. Especially from my mother in the beginning.
Oh, really? Wow. There you are down at the shop, 27 years, morning till night, and she's calling you lazy, huh?
Yep. Well, you have to realize when you first start off, I started off in real estate. I went 18 months. I was spending all kinds of money trying to do all kinds of stuff. And I had a lot of people telling me how it was crazy. What I wanted to do was impossible.
Yeah.
And I was being lazy. I wanted free money, get rich quick scheme. You have to realize this is before the internet. This is back when Carlton Sheets had 2:00 a.m. commercials, infra commercials that I bought. That I bought for $330.
And we didn't have computers yet. Nothing.
So today I want to lay out a blueprint for the action takers. So this podcast has a pre-qualification. So if you don't meet this pre-qualification, just go find another one of the podcasts because you're wasting your time.
Okay.
So it's got a blueprint. I'm going to lay out a blueprint for the action takers that will just sort of blindly follow the steps without thinking or feeling they need to change anything. Right? Which is always amusing to me. I've done hundreds of deals and lost count after 4,300 offers that I made to sellers face to face, nose to nose.
Yeah.
Right. And then what's amazing to me is the rookie comes along, they read my script and decide they wouldn't do it that way.
I'm sorry.
And they change something without testing it like I have with the hundreds and thousands of times I've used it and think that it's better than what I would do.
Yeah.
And that just amazes me. Right? It's just incredible. I'm in a coaching program right now that we paid $30,000 for the year. $30,000. And you want to know what my goal of the coaching program is?
Sure. What is it?
To hit the milestones of the first year. So next year I could pay $50,000 for coaching. And my goal for that is to hit the $75,000 coaching to eventually get in the $125,000 a year coaching program. Okay. So I can't do that. I paid $30,000 because I feel like I can get more out of what we're doing. And it's all about marketing for a creative REI replay for the platform. Right.
Yeah. Well, if you do it right, the 30 will get you 300,000 or whatever.
Right. So I'm very coachable, which has gotten me to where I am. Some people are not coachable. So the prerequisite is, I just said it, you have to be coachable and have initiative. Have initiative. Now, we talked about this a couple of podcasts ago. Initiative means doing activity without being told to do it.
Yeah.
And intend, this is initiative. Intend means that you fully expect to. Intend means you're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
To resolve a difficulty or improve a situation all on your own. That's initiative. So you're gonna do activity without being told, and you intend to resolve a difficulty or improve a situation all on your own. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get help, but you're not going to expect somebody else to do anything for you until you get going. Right?
Yeah, like you tell somebody what to do, and they go like, "How do I do that?"
Yeah.
And they, you want me to just do it for you now? Like, how do I do that? Where do I get that? I don't have the phone number. All those things. Like, yeah.
And this comes directly from a result of a book that we talked about a year or so ago, which is Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan from the what is this group called? Strategic Coaching or something like that. And the book is called Who, Not How.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't have this mojo today, this podcast may not be for you, or at least prove out any results. You're not going to go test them. Okay. So you can keep listening, but just consider it more like a reality show for you, or a form of entertainment if you don't take action. So the people who will take action will write notes, they'll do things, they'll pay attention, they'll listen. And the people that don't, well, this is just a reality TV show for them.
Yeah.
Or it's like entertainment. It's like watching Think You Could Dance, or what's the one with Paul on
with who?
Paul. What's his name? Oh my God. The famous one that came out, the talent show.
Oh, yeah, America's Got Talent.
America's Got Talent. Is that it?
Yes, Simon Cowell, America. It's back on the air this last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Very, very good this year. Very entertaining.
Yeah,
and only they're going to make money, but we're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless we get a good idea from one of the, I don't know, one of the acts that we can juggle.
The funny thing is those people that go on those shows make more money from their exposure than they do from their songs, because people approach them when they don't win. They get contracts with other people.
Oh yeah, if they don't win, they need entertainment. Sure.
And the other thing about that show, which I never knew about till a couple of years ago, because my wife dragged me to the casino, because the last year's contestants were on tour. So my daughter and my wife had to go see them. It was the worst experience I ever had. Oh, really?
We saw one of the shows. It was okay. What happened to you?
We were in a nosebleed section. We had problems with seats, and I just think it sucked. It was like the most unentertaining thing in the world. But I didn't know any of the people. I didn't know what any of it meant. So
no, if you're not engaged in like watching through, it doesn't mean as much.
All right, so we managed to waste half the podcast. So here we go.
Yay!
So number one, which by the way, there's only 4 steps.
Okay.
So number one, the old formula that we've talked about for a very long time, but I am going to go into detail today.
Okay.
Find a motivated seller and communicate to them. Now, I'm going to cover this in great detail in podcast number 412 and 413. Okay. 412, I think I'm going to change the title of 413, so I'm not going to give it to you. But 412 is how to get creative real estate deals for free.
Okay.
Part 1. And I think what I'm going to do is on part 2, I'm going to not only give you the end of, because I go through at least 10 or 12 strategies of how to get deals for free. In part 2, I'm going to cover how you can get rid of them. Where there's 100 ways, 100 places you can go to advertise your property.
Okay.
100 ways.
Wow.
Right. So, anyways, so find a motivated seller and communicate to them. Now, that a lot of people will get frozen with this because they're like, how do you do that?
Sure.
I'm going to cover that in episode number 412 and 413. And I absolutely, positively, definitely think you are going to be blown away. Because while doing the research on this, I decided I need to go back to doing some of this stuff because I used to do it, and I'm going to go back to doing some stuff.
Totally. Yeah, we've been talking about that.
Yeah.
It's a different market right now. Obviously, things always kind of move forward and change, and you want to keep up with it or go back to something. And
right.
My joke is like vinyl records are back.
Yeah.
So if it works, do it.
I listen to one every morning, a vinyl record, every morning.
You have a record player?
In my bedroom.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, in my bedroom, I listen to 1920s and 30s jazz, and I work out.
Nice.
Every morning. Not for long, 10 or 15 minutes. It's not a long episode. And while I'm getting dressed, I'm up there, and the music is blaring. It's vinyl records. There's a place here in Wallingford that has there's a vinyl record store. I go over there on Hartford Turnpike. Anyways, so we're going to talk about just really, originally I was going to give you a couple places to find deals, but I'm going to do podcast number 412 and 413. So today I'm going to keep it simple. We're just going to stay on Facebook because by far, when I have people do this, when I have newbies do this, especially people that can't afford Creative REI Reply or in the beginning couldn't afford some of my training, this is what you do. It is really simple.
Yeah.
The problem is the consistency because people drop it out. So I have some crudeness in here, but I promise you if you follow it, it will work. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to go on to Facebook Marketplace. And on the left-hand side, there's links for different types of markets. Now take that as a hint, different types of markets. So you're there to go shopping. And Facebook puts on the left side categories that you can shop in.
Okay.
Why would they do that?
Well, people are looking for specific things, so you filter what you're looking for.
Exactly. So your marketing should be the same way.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go over that in episode number 412. I have an excellent story that proves that exact point.
Oh, cool.
So here's the thing. We're not buying houses yet. At this stage, all we're looking for is a willing seller to talk to us. Also, we are only controlling properties, not actually purchasing them. Right? Remember, creative real estate is all about controlling the paperwork that controls the property. That's what creative real estate is, right? The money's already in the property. The lender already funded the seller and they own it. What we're trying to do is we're trying to leverage that money so that the owner has tremendous benefit, the buyer has tremendous benefit, and we get some benefit.
So you're saying it's like a relay race where we're passing the baton from one guy to us, to a buyer, etc. It's already, the money is already there.
You could say that.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to go get new money. Even if the seller wants cash, they can refinance and get the cash out and then stick you with the payment, right? So we do this most often with an option agreement and a lease agreement. Now, an option agreement is a 1-page, sometimes 2-page agreement, and pretty much it allows you to have the right to sell the property, but not the obligation. So a lot of times options are used like realtors, like realtors do, like they have a 6-month listing contract so they can go find a buyer, right? So often an option is used like that. Okay. So what happens is options will give us the purchase agreement or give us an agreement to purchase. I think we lost Peter. I hope it's not me. So options will give us the right to actually purchase and sell this property. Okay, now you're back. Did you lose me?
I lost you too. We lost each other.
So, yeah. So the option is just the rights to purchase the property.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is, instead of doing it like a realtor and try to do it in 6 months, we spread it out over 6 years or 60 years. You can use an option agreement for as long as you want. So what we do is we get this option agreement from the seller, which is controlling the property without owning the property. Excuse me, an option agreement controls the deed, which is actually the paperwork that owns the property.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to make money off this property without owning it, right?
Yeah.
So once the seller signs these documents, we're going to find someone who wants to live in the property and sell or assign these documents for a healthy profit. Does it make sense? So we're going to pay, often we'll pay $100 option consideration deposit for the option agreement,
right,
and attach a lease to it so they can have the right to occupy the property while they're getting ready to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pay $100 for the option agreement, put $100 down with the seller for an option deposit,
mm-hmm.
and then we'll go sell it to our buyer for $10,000. So technically, we're buying and selling a piece of paper. We're not buying and selling real estate.
Yep.
But that piece of paper controls the property. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on. In Facebook Marketplace, you don't look at the properties. Like when you go on Zillow, don't look. You could do this on Zillow too, by the way. It's not just Facebook. I'm going to tell you why we do this in Facebook in a minute, because it's got the best selection.
Oh.
It says, the link says for rent.
Mm.
That means you have a seller that doesn't live in the property. You have a seller that is already renting, so they're already collecting monthly payments.
Mm-hmm.
They're already a terms deal.
All
you have to do is ask them if they'd be willing to sell it, and after a while. So all the scripting and all the stuff that you worry about as a rookie is done for you already. You don't have to ask a person that's trying to collect $300,000 for their house if they'd be willing to take $1,500 a month and handle those considerations.
Mm-hmm.
This is all done for you. It's already done.
Mm-hmm.
They're already collecting payments. And now you come along and say, how about if you collect those payments and there's no landlording, you don't have to landlord anymore, and I turn you into the bank, and oh yeah, in a few years, 2 or 3 years, I'll purchase the house from you. It's a lot easier to convince somebody. They're like putty in your hands now, because everything a landlord wants, even if you say to the landlord, I'll tell you what, I know you don't want to sell right now, but I know you're going to retire someday. When do you think you're going to retire? Oh, probably in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, how about if we put the option on for 10 years when you retire? Oh, yeah, I'll do that. They're putty in your hands because you're plugging into the conversation they're already having in their head. You see how easy this is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's what you text. Here's what you message them. Now, you don't look at the houses. You just find the for rent and you go to the messenger and you type this in the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
It's an instant message to them. Here we go. Would you like, I'm give that to you again. Would you be willing to rent for a year or two, then sell to me? I'll give that to you again. Would you be willing to rent for a year or two, then sell to me? You type it in once, which, by the way, you don't even have to do that if you use some of the tools that we use, but I'm not even going to cover that. Let me give you the name of the tool that I use, because if you do this the way I'm talking about, I use Text Blaze.
Text Blaze.
BLAZE. When text plays, what you do is you just put a symbol in there, or you type one or two things, and it automatically populates the field, so you don't have to type it every time. But before we get technical, this is supposed to be easy. You just type in the messenger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to rent for a year or two and then sell to me? Question mark. Then you copy it and you repeat this process 24 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to send this message out to 25 people a day. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the ones that respond yes, you're going to need to ask them for the address and their phone number so you can continue the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You do your due diligence after you find out if they're willing to do this. There's no sense in doing due diligence. We're back at the 80-20 rule.
Yeah,
There's
right.
no sense in doing all the due diligence and all that work when they're not willing to do what you need them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
Now, here's the lazy point. Right? Type or text this once, like I said, then copy and paste it 24 more times. You want to do a minimum of 25 messages each day. In about a week, give or take, I know because I've had many students do. Fatima was great at this. Remember Fatima?
Sure.
Right? Give or take, you will, in about a week, give or take, you'll find not only a seller willing to talk to you, but because you're advertising for rent, because they're advertising for rent, they're already willing to take monthly payments.
Right.
Right? So 90% of any seller resistance for you is gone. You don't need a script. You don't need to know all the creative real estate strategies. You don't need to go study for a bazillion years before you do this. You want to know why?
Yeah.
Because if you've rented a place in the past, you know how to do 90 or 95% of it already. You already did the deal. You've already lived this deal.
It's called a lease.
It's called a lease. You
Who hasn't
rented a
done a
place
lease?
in college or and when you were a kid or
First got
maybe
married.
Yeah. Maybe you're still renting right now.
Yeah.
You already know how to do this. Right?
Yeah.
I know that I wrote this later and I'm going to run into it, but the part that aggravates me a lot about this little blueprint is I know for a fact, a very statistical fact that is 100% true. There are not a lot of absolutes in this world.
Mm-hmm.
But this is pretty much an absolute. Human beings crap.
Crap?
They go in the bathroom and they take a dump.
Yes, preferably yes.
Most do it once a day or a couple times a day. There might be some people that do it every other day and some might be constipated, but for the most part, most people go in the bathroom and take a dump.
Thanks for the details.
This is a closed door environment that has no children, no spouses, no interruptions, that you could actually do this.
Wow.
This is your opportunity to take advantage of crapping time.
You mean instead of scrolling through Facebook or reading a magazine?
Right. I almost call this podcast How to Buy Houses While You're Taking a Crap.
Oh, God, I'm so glad you didn't. This is enough trouble when you get into it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, step 2. Our next step. Now, you don't discredit this. What I'm going to tell you. You need to make your service known to the seller.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this has been a confusing thing. I've realized this because I've gotten some feedback from some of my coaching clients. There's a few things that I've learned recently. It's amazing because after my 8 months off, I see things that I was doing and just, I see it so clear now. Wow. It's like, why the hell was I doing that? It's like things pop out to me, little things pop out to me like, oh, I got to change that.
Cool.
Right? Because I just think better now. I don't think better. I observe and I'm more aware better now.
Nice.
Right? My observation and my awareness is much higher, right?
Cool.
So that's where this stuff is coming from. So I noticed that, well, I usually tell people, well, first thing you got to do is you got to find and communicate to a motivated seller.
Mm-hmm.
And then tell them what you do.
Yeah, it almost sounds unimportant, but tell us why it's that important.
So before I do that, I want you to understand, how do you tell them? So if I said to you, Peter, find a motivated seller and communicate them, and then tell them what you do. I want you to give me. I'm going to put you on the spot. It's not going to be the answer. It's not the answer I'm going to give you. So just what would you do? Yeah, well, no, I'm not trying to trick you. It's just that this is a confusion, and this is why I'm bringing it up, because people aren't doing. I do it one way, and I didn't realize I was doing this, and I realized it. So, what would you tell someone? Like, what do you do? Like, so you're on the phone and you say to the seller, you know, do you have a house for sale? Yes. Is your name on the deed? Yes. What are you asking for the price? Okay. Well, here's what I do.
Right.
What would you say to them?
I would tell them what I do is I find people who normally can't buy a house, and I help them get into the house on a lease for a short term, and then they buy it. And I've helped a lot of people that way.
Very well done, Peter. Excellent job. That's the exact right answer. Very well done.
I got one.
Very well done.
Because I read the script, Bill.
Yeah, there you go. So what I do, and you tell the people, this is what I do. How does it start off with? What I do. What I do. That's what I do. That's very important. What I do is specialize in selling to folks who normally don't qualify for a bank loan, which is about 80% of the people looking for a house right now. And we allow them to lease until they're qualified for a loan that will pay you off. Right? And because we're getting an option to buy from you, we pass it along to our buyers. So technically they are buying, not renting. And this is huge, because right away they're going to be like, I don't want to be a landlord.
Yeah.
So this is why we say that. I'm going to repeat that because there's more to it. And because we are getting an option to buy from you, we pass it along to our buyer. So technically they are buying, not renting, which means they do all the maintenance and repairs on the property. Now, I'm not going to read it today, but the script that we normally use talks about, when you go on vacation, you rent a car.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to do it anyways. Well, we're not doing that. If you own the car, if you rented a car, you're not going to change the oil, do all the maintenance, change the tires, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
No, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But if you own the car, you would. That's how these buyers go into the house. When you talk about selling them the house and then allowing them to pay payments until they get qualified for a mortgage. This is why we don't advertise rent to own, because it's backwards. Rent to own means that you're going to rent, and if you can someday, possibly with a miracle, somebody rains down on top of you and gives you money so you can buy this house, then you'll buy it. Because that's what rent to own means. It's taking a person that is not qualified for the property and putting them in the property, and they'll never cash you out. And they will think like a tenant.
Oh, yeah.
No, what we're doing is we're selling this house, no bank qualifying. And we will allow you to use the house and stay in the house until you get bank qualified. It's a much different flow. And I can't say that enough, because we talked about that. I think we talked about that in the last podcast, didn't we? Episode number, it's episode number 411, which is the next podcast. Episode number 411 is, which is the next one after this, how to lease property and not do landlord for gargantuan profits.
Yeah.
And we go over how to do that, right? So I'm not going to do that now. So this means you go from, and I'm still talking to the seller, right? So we tell them they're not going to do maintenance, they're not going to do repairs. And I tell them this means you go from being a landlord to technically being a bank, right? The lease option, the lease option you and I sign has all this in writing, so it's completely legal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it, Mr. Seller. If your toilet broke right now, would you call your bank, your lender, and say, come fix my toilet?
Mm-hmm.
No, they would
Mm-hmm.
laugh at you. Well, that's the position I'm going to put you in with this transaction.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's pretty simple.
Well, to me, it's a very important step. You tell people, you're like, oh, I buy houses. That's not good. You tell them really what you do for a few reasons. One, there's a few benefits for the guy. Like, he's already renting it. Why would he rent it to you?
Right.
He's already doing that. Well, now he doesn't have to be a landlord. And there's also the exit strategy, because he'll be able to get out of it at some point down the road. So he doesn't have to worry about that. As just another point that I think of.
And just to kind of keep diverting here, because I'm worried about time, like I always am. But the other benefit that we do with these sellers, and I didn't put it in the podcast, but we add 0.25% in the option agreement for appreciation. So that means every year the price of the house goes up 3%.
Yeah, 0.25% per month.
So the landlord doesn't feel like they're getting gypped by selling now. So that guy that does 10 years, they say, well, I don't want to sell right now. Okay, well, when did you want to retire? I don't know, 10 years from now. Oh, well, why don't we make the option agreement for 10 years? He's going to get 3% a year for 10 years. So he's not going to lose out on his appreciation, because the national average over 100 years is 3%.
Right.
Okay, so this is why this is the easiest deal in the world to do, because we've handled all the objections.
Yep.
We're going to rent. We're going to rent. We're going to take away the landlording, and we're going to give him appreciation, and we're going to give him all his cash when he's ready to retire or stop doing it. Could be next year, could be 5 years, could be 10 years, could be 15 years. It doesn't matter.
Hey, is this a stupid question? I don't know if we've talked about this. Do we also have the rent go up each year at least?
It's funny. We talked about this on the coaching call before you got there the other night. So I'm going to start adding. National average is 1 to 3%. I'm going to start adding 5% to my rentals as increase.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 3.
Yep.
Now you need to discover what is needed and wanted from the seller.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So here's all you need to know for vital information, because there's information and then there's vital information.
Right.
There's information that satisfies your curiosity and makes you feel like you're working. Mm-hmm. And then there's information that we actually use to structure the deal and close the seller.
Right.
So you need to siphon out which piece of information is which. Which one is just satisfying your ego and entertaining you, and which one is actually going to make you a deal. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that ability, which most rookies don't, because they don't know what I'm telling them right now, or if they do know it, they don't think about it when they're talking to a seller. They're too busy trying to be socially polite and trying to have the right answers. So they think if they impress the seller because they're smart, the seller will do business with them. No, the seller is going to do business with them because they're getting everything they want and all the benefits on their side. Has nothing to do with you. Has nothing to do with your intelligence. Has everything to do with you figuring out how to help them get what they want. Mm-hmm. So here's the information you need. So you need to discover what is needed and wanted. So how do we do that? 1, we ask, what's their price? 2, we ask, how much are the monthly payments? 3, we ask, what's the duration that you'll let us do this? Oh, I'm going to retire in 10 years. So I'd like to cash out in 10 years. Okay, we'll make it 10 years. And then if, and they are going to ask this, in this deal, they are going to ask this, if they want a deposit, you need to find how much. Now, most landlords, what you should do is 1 or 2 months rent, because they're used to doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're used to doing that. So you can't say, I want it for nothing. Just say, how about if I give you 2 months rent? That's what they're used to getting.
Sure.
Okay. Now this is important. Yeah. This is important. Well, they want their security deposit, right? So we've handled all their objections. What objection do they have right now? Why wouldn't they do this? This is the grand slam offer in a different variety, right? So this is important. Your profit in this deal, comes from the price and the deposit amount.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why. Let me explain. You will ask your buyer to pay you your profit. And you do this by raising the seller's asking price by 5 or 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the interesting thing that I don't know if you've ever connected the dots on this, because I don't know if I've ever said it this clear. But then your buyer gives you 5 to 10% profit.
Mm-hmm.
So you're raising the price of the house by 5 or 10%, and that 5 or 10% is your profit. You see?
Right. And if anybody thinks who would pay more for a house, these are people who can't get a house. They're stuck renting, and the opportunity has not arrived until just now. And for that little extra money, think how much they'll save on rent over the next bunch of years with nothing to show for it. So it's very worthwhile to them. We're not doing anything bad to them at all.
You're missing the most valuable point, because I used to say the same thing you're saying right now.
Yeah.
If the price of the property is going to go up with our option agreement 3% for a year, and they rent for 3 years, that means it's going up 9%.
Mm-hmm.
So paying an extra 5 or 10% right now, it's going to, in 3 years, it's going to equalize.
True. But we're gonna still charge them more too, aren't we?
That's what my point is.
Mm.
Anyways, never mind. So
okay.
Then when your buyer gives you the 5 or 10% for an option consideration deposit, that's a non-refundable. So, like in the stock market, you can buy a $400 stock and give them $10 for the option consideration deposit. If the stock goes up to $450, you can sell the stock and make $50. If it goes down to $350, you lose your $10.
Yeah.
Right? This is the same way in real estate. We give them $100 for a security deposit or an option consideration deposit. If we don't execute the option, we lose our $100. Mm-hmm. If we do execute our option, right, we make $50,000, $60,000, $100,000. Right? So your portion of the profit of the buyer's deposit is minus anything that you promised your seller. So if you give the seller $100 to consummate the deal, the option agreement, and the buyer gives you $10,000, the profit is really $10,000 minus the $100.
Mm-hmm.
But if you promise the seller who rents at $1,500 per month that you'd give them $3,000 for 2 months security deposit, right? So now when you collect the $10,000, you give your buyer the $3,000 and you keep $7,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this option consideration deposit transfers to the purchase and sales agreement when the buyer executes their rights to purchase the property. Because an option is you have the rights to purchase the property, but not the obligation.
Right.
That way when they decide they want to purchase the property, they give you, it says in there, you got to give something in writing 30 days before. You then execute, or the seller then executes a purchase and sales agreement. And that $10,000 goes from an option consideration deposit, and it changes its name on the purchase and sales agreement. It's the same money, but it changes its name on the purchase and sales agreement. That $10,000 is now the earnest deposit.
Right, which the bank likes because they know that they put some money down.
And it doesn't matter that it's 2 or 3 years later. You do not need to put more money down when they go apply for the loan because the money's already in the deal. And we use 5% or 10% because 5% is what FHA requires to put down.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, and the bank makes a loan on the remainder, and they're happy because they get their money.
Right. So I hope that's clear and clear everything up. Okay. So. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to ask the seller their price, right? Because remember, what we're doing is we're giving them what they need. We're discovering what they need and want, right? So you're going to ask them, what's your price? Okay, good. So you don't need to worry about getting a low number. I mean, obviously, if it's a $300,000 house and they're asking $400,000, then it's not worth it, right? It's got to be within that 5 or 10%, right?
Yeah.
You gauge on how much to pay the monthly payment. It's not a rent. This is where I get a lot of trouble because they're like, oh, well, in my area, there's $800,000 houses, but they only get $2,000 for rent. That's in Oregon, right?
Oh.
Or Washington, out there that happens, California, right?
Yeah, yeah.
No, you don't do that. What you do is you base your income off how much their mortgage is going to be. So if you're selling for $300,000, I go to mortgage.org or mortgagecalculator.org. Mortgagecalculator.org. It's a great calculator. It's free. You do it right online. I put the price of the house, $300,000. I don't subtract the deposit, $300,000. I let the current interest, which right now is 7.77, I just put 8%. I put in there what the taxes are annually, what the insurance is annually. No pre-mortgage information, otherwise known as PMI. And I calculate from there, and it tells me how much their mortgage payment is going to be if they got a mortgage on this house today at $300,000. I take that number because it's got the taxes and insurance in it, and I usually add a couple $100 to it. And that's motivation so that when they go get a mortgage, they can reduce their mortgage or their monthly payment by a couple $100. It gives them motivation to do that. Yeah. You should do all this. This is how you figure out how much your payment should be. By the way, all this money is going to your seller because you're not staying in the deal. So it's another benefit to the seller that's now collecting $1,300 or $1,400 or $1,500 for a rent. Now all of a sudden you're getting them $2,200 or $2,300. You see all the benefits? They're putty in your hands, right? You're taking away the landlord obligations. You're giving them you're going to cash them out on the option agreement when they're ready to retire or get their money a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. And now you're making them an extra $700 or $800 a month in cash flow. You're putty in their hands, or they're putty in your hands. You see how easy this is? It's a simple conversation. Number 4. And we're at the hour and 2 minutes. Wow, I really blew this. We chattered too much in the beginning. Number 4, which brings us to our final step. Give the seller what is needed and wanted. You will produce this by presenting buyers you will end up that you will find for your seller. So you're going to give them what they're wanting. After we negotiate all these prices, which there is no negotiating, once we just do our discovery stage and find out what they need and want, as long as the price is not ridiculous, even if it's what Zillow says or what your comps say, you can still get 5 or 10% more because people will pay that. You know, it's like if you wanted to go pay cash for a car right now, right? And the sales price is $10,000, you tell the guy I want to pay cash, there's a lower number. If you want to finance it, it's $10,000. That's just the way America is. So houses are the same way, right? Yeah. So what's going to happen is you're going to give them their asking price. You're going to get them, in most cases, you're going to get them more money what they're collecting because you're going to use the mortgage amount, not the rental amount, right? And there's a whole bunch of other benefits. They're going to get, stuff that they've been getting, depreciation, all that kind of stuff, the mortgage pay down, all that kind of stuff, right? But they're already getting that, so you don't have to talk about that, right? So you're going to produce what they need and want because you did the discovery and you found out their price, you found out their payment, you found out their duration, and you found out how much you got to give down, which is usually a couple months rent because that's what they're used to, right? So buyers are 100 times easier to find than sellers. All you need to do is we use avail.co. It's A-V like in Victor, A-I-L. Avail.co. And it posts about on 15 or 18 different sites. And all you have to do is post on there, house for sale, no bank qualifying. Not rent to own like we talked about earlier. That brings in Section 8 people and the wrong people that can't buy, right? So you don't want to do that, right? Then what we do is we use apartments.com. Actually, if the seller is not set up for that way, what we actually do is we set up an account for them in apartments.com. We get their email address and we go in and make a password and we set up an account for them, right? And we use this for two reasons. Number one, we use this for the background checks. So now you're going to give your seller the username and password that you made for them, and they're going to go into their own account and they're going to read the background checks already. So they have the background checks in their own account.
Mm-hmm.
It costs $30 for the tenant, the purchaser to do it, and each adult has to do it. So if there's 4 adults over 18, you have to do 4 credit reports or 4 reports. Mm-hmm. And those reports, apartments.com does an amazing job. Those reports do credit and criminal and driver's licenses. They do, how many times they moved, evictions. It does all that, right? Plus, once the apartments.com is set up, you're going to have the seller go in there. Once you make your deal, you put all your documents in apartments.com. You upload everything there, your leases, all the documents you could sign, all get put in that account, right? Mm-hmm. So everything's recorded. So everything's there. Then once you're done and the seller's there and you get your money, then the seller can go change the password on the account to their own password so you can't get back in there, and they run the account, including they put their bank information in there where they want to receive their money, and the tenant buyer pays them through apartments.com. So the tenant buyer sets up a way however they're going to do it, with credit cards or debit cards or however they're going to do it, and they pay their lease amount every month, and it automatically goes into the seller's bank account. It does all the late charges. It does everything all automatic. If they need repairs, they can send a communication into apartments.com. Everything is there and recorded. And the best part for the tenants, for the landlord, is at the end of the year, you print a report for your accountant and all the shit is there. It's an amazing software. It's for free.
That sounds great.
Now, the only other thing I want to say before we end off is you should make sure that the deposit is paid separately. Sometimes I do it in an apartments.com account. Sometimes I don't. What I want to do is that $10,000 that's coming to me, I want to keep that. I want to keep control of that so I can pay that to the seller. So I'll usually have that go into like a PayPal account or a Venmo account, or if they're in your backyard, I have them bring me a certified check. I try to control the deposit. They're going to bring me the deposit when they sign the lease and the option agreement when we're selling.
Yeah.
So they need to bring that money. And the only way I give them the keys and allow them access to the house is when they give me that money, not the seller. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So, for God's sake, this is not bad for crapping time, is it?
No.
Really?
You got to do something useful once in a while.
It's the easiest deal in the world, and you can do it while you're sitting on the toilet. Seriously, I'm being facetious, but how long does it take you to copy and paste 25 messages into a messenger in Facebook? And I'm telling you, you do this for a week, 2 the most, you will be in communication with landlords. And you will be having these conversations. And if you follow along today's little blueprint that I just gave you, it won't be long before you start doing a deal. It won't be long before you call me up and say, I need coaching, Bill. I need help with these deals. Because you'll have more than one. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Plus, in the description, I put a link that has some scripts, and it has a calculator, and it has stuff that you probably will want to do once you get going and doing a few more deals. So you should go check that out. All right. Thank you so much for your support today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe to us. Make sure you like us wherever you're watching us or listening to us, and make sure you give us a review. Okay. Anything you have to say, Peter? Because I did a lot of talking. I tried to get a whole lot in there. We goofed off too much in the beginning.
No, that's fine. There are some good points that I picked up today. That like that description of how we buy the house. That sounded like a little more than I have on my script. So I want to double check because I like that. There was some. It was like enough data to make the person feel confident in you too. And have had people say, "You help people get the house. That's really nice." because they think
I
you're
want to
doing
do that.
something good.
I want to do that. I want to
They want to
participate.
help. That's a good person. Exactly. They think it's a great thing.
Chris says, thank you, Pete and Bill, or Bill and Pete. Great episode. Thanks, Chris. We love you being here every week.
Thank you, Chris.
So, what is that? Luna
Kitsune. Wow.
Yeah.
Luna Kitsune. Wow. I'm not sure it's his correct pronunciation.
They're saying I'm about to take the most productive crap ever.
And you had to repeat it.
Yay!
You had to repeat that. Now it's etched permanently on the internet forever. Great. Thank you all.
It's a beautiful. Thank you very much. That makes my heart pound. All right, guys, over and out. I'm telling you, well, the next 2 or 3 episodes are very exciting because they're already written. 411 is how to lease property and not do the landlording for gargantuan profits. We're going to go into great detail on how we sell our properties on lease options, and we don't talk about that a lot, but you're going to love that. And then 412 and 413 are going to be how to get creative real estate deals for free. Okay, and how to sell them for free. Okay, so there's 100 ways, and I'm going to give you that little checklist, and it's all very cool. So make sure you stay tuned in.
Cool.
All right, guys, over and out. Have a great week. We will talk to you in the next episode. Flourish and prosper.